Now, most people use HDR photography for landscape work or for architectural work, but it's also possible to use HDR for portraiture. In fact, you do it all the time. You have a phone, and that phone probably is on auto HDR. If it senses that it needs more latitude than it has, it actually takes an HDR image, and it doesn't care if there's a person or not. And it stitches those together inside of the camera, and it does a pretty good job. You can do the same thing with your camera and with Lightroom, and you can do it as a raw image. So when I'm taking portraits in HDR, and especially if I don't have a tripod, here are some of the rules that I follow when I'm doing that to have a successful HDR portrait image. First off, I try and make myself into a tripod. So I'm going to either lean against something, or I'm going to kneel on the ground or sit on a wall in order to kind of steady my body. Secondly, I'm going to try and steady the camera against my body by making sure that my arms are close to my body and that I'm touching the front of the camera to my forehead so that I have lots of points of contact on the camera and keep it very steady. And then the next thing I'm going to do is, instead of pushing the trigger down, I'm going to squeeze so that I get as little movement as possible in taking the picture. And then finally, I'm going to hold that shutter down all the way with the same amount of pressure the whole time that all the exposures are happening. And remember, I'm in the highest shutter burst that I can possibly have on my camera. And the faster the shutter burst, the better. Also, the higher the speed that you can have in your shutter, the better off you'll be, because those bursts can happen faster if you're at an 8,000th of a second than if you're at, say, a 60th of a second. And of course, in the end, as with any image that you take when you're on location, the most important thing you can do after the shot is taken is to review that histogram and make sure that you have the proper data. Now, in the case of an HDR, you're always going to be reviewing every single one of those exposures to make sure that you have the right amount of information, so that when you get back to Lightroom, you'll have all the data and you can create a successful HDR with the most information possible. I hope you've enjoyed the videos you've received so far on working with the histogram on location and also in the studio. But now it's time for us to actually get back to the studio and work in Lightroom and show you how we take those images that we collected on location with all of the information, all of the data, show you how to work and finesse those images to get the absolute best imagery you can out of them. I'll see you at the next video.